Welcome to the Credit Edge. Ideas on time and working for a living. Let's get started.
Okay, let's unpack this. We have a powerful, a really quiet piece of writing today that just forces you to stop and think.
It really does.
It's an essay called The Price of Illusion, and our mission here is to do a deep dive, to really get into its core argument.
Which is that the cost of keeping up appearances, the debt, the stress, all of it is always higher than just being yourself.
Exactly. And we're going to use the Credit Edge philosophy, that framework, to sort of identify the hidden prices buried in this text. I want to start with the very first line of the essay. It just sets the tone so perfectly. It's measured, it's reflective.
It's so grounded.
It is. The author says this: "What we pretend to be eventually costs more than who we are."
In that sentence, that's the whole thing right there. That's the thesis. It's so critical because it just immediately says, look, everything is a transaction.
Everything.
Your time, your energy, your peace of mind.
Yeah.
You're always trading it for something. And what we're doing today is we're unpacking the pricing on that.
The hidden costs.
The hidden costs. This isn't about judging anyone. It's just about clarity. It's about seeing the expenses, the financial, sure, but also the temporal, the emotional ones that, they never show up on a bill.
When you frame it like that, everything is a transaction, it really shifts the whole perspective, doesn't it? It's not about lifestyle choices anymore.
No.
It's about resource management. So our goal is to get into this text and understand really precisely why awareness is what the essay calls the only path back.
The only way to reclaim your hours, your freedom.
Exactly.
And that's why we're using the Credit Edge lens, because it's all about the reality of trading your hours for wages. We need to see the patterns of compliance, of comparison that the text lays out for us.
To see how we trade comfort now.
Instant comfort, a feeling of safety right now, for a freedom in the future that you don't even realize you've sold off until it's years too late.
Yeah.
We have to define what this illusion tax really is.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning then. The essay is very clear that this illusion, it's not some big decision we make, it's slow.
It's gradual, almost ambient.
It is. The source describes it growing like this: slowly, from expectations we never questioned, from comparisons we never agreed to, from a quiet pressure to look like we are doing better than we feel.
That quiet accumulation, that's the key. And it immediately brings us to the bedrock of our whole analysis here. Awakening is the foundation. That's principle 5.
You have to see the cost first.
You have to see the cost because the whole system is built on the fact that you won't. It's gradual, it's insidious, it builds up under all these assumptions we never even think to examine.
Right.
The illusion doesn't start with a choice to deceive. It starts with a failure to just pause and ask why.
So if it starts with these expectations we never questioned, what is the trade? What are we actually giving up in that first moment before there's even any debt on a credit card?
We are trading the right to define our own needs.
Yeah.
That's it. That is the first silent transaction.
Autonomy for comfort.
You're swapping your own autonomy for the momentary comfort of just following a script, somebody else's script.
A script from where? Culture, media.
Culture, media, your family, what you see on social media. It doesn't matter. The point in the source is that it's not about a person suddenly deciding to be vain. It's about this subtle wearing away of your own self-definition.
You lose your internal compass.
You do. You replace what you actually need with this external map of what you're supposed to want.
That's a heavy lift, that initial trade. And I'm really struck by how the essay immediately grounds this in the working class context for people trading hours for wages. It says it so clearly. For us, the working class, illusion often begins as survival.
And that is the pivotal distinction. It changes the entire conversation. This is not about, rich people buying yachts to show off.
Right.
For so many of us, especially if you're close to the edge economically, this performance, it's about protection. The source is saying, look, if you can project stability, you are managing your risk.
They're protecting your job.
Your access to loans, protecting your family from worry. You're shielding yourself from the judgment that always comes with looking like you're struggling.
But why is that distinction so important when we talk about cost? I mean, if it starts as survival, can you even call it an illusion? Isn't it just a necessary tool?
That's the trap, you see. That's the challenge. The source argues that, yes, it starts as a defense, but it's slowly, and I mean inevitably, it morphs into a debt machine.
How?
The hidden price kicks in the moment that the external show requires more energy, more work, more focus, more hiding, than your internal reality can actually support.
When the gap gets too big.
When that gap between what you show and what you feel becomes a sinkhole for your energy, At that point, the illusion isn't protecting you anymore. It's a parasite. And principle 5, awakening, that starts when you finally see that shift. When you're spending more energy looking fine than you are on being fine, you've crossed into debt.
Let's go deeper into that energy sinkhole. The first part of our dissection has to be about the emotional labor. The text is so specific about the actions, it says. We hold ourselves together so others do not worry. We smile when we are tired. We act steady when life feels unstable.
I mean, that is just a beautiful definition of labor, isn't it? Emotional effort is work.
It's unpaid work.
Completely unpaid. Never shows up on a W-2, but it demands physical, mental resources. And that is a massive, profound hidden cost. The source is revealing this enormous weight we carry around in silence.
And what's the physiological cost of that? I mean, what does holding yourself together actually do to you?
Well, think about it. You're constantly diverting energy. Physical, mental, emotional energy that should be going to recovery, to rest, to actually solving your problems. It's all being rerouted to maintain the performance.
It sounds like you're borrowing from your own reserves. Which brings us right to the first principle, right? We have to quantify this. If we're performing stability, how many hours is that performance going to cost us down the line?
That is the essential grounding question. And yes, it brings us straight to time is the only real currency, principle 1.
Money stores labor, debt borrows time.
Exactly. Every single moment you spend performing or even just worrying about the performance is time that's being stolen from your actual life. It's stolen from rest. It's stolen from doing things that build real, sustainable value.
Like learning something new or just connecting with someone, honestly?
Yes. This isn't just some abstract emotional debt. You are literally borrowing time from your future self, and that time has to be paid back.
Through burnout.
Burnout, exhaustion, breakdown. The essay makes you confront this idea that you're trading a moment of emotional effort now for a huge emotional deficit later.
Yeah.
Performance has to end sometime, and the hours you spent on it, they're just gone.
And the essay tells us why we make this trade. It's tied to something so basic, that need for safety and belonging.
Yeah.
It says this learned behavior is that the world teaches us early that appearance matters, that looking successful is a form of safety.
Yes, and that is the psychological lever that the whole system uses to its advantage. The source says we hide our struggle, not because we want to deceive, but because we want to belong.
We're trading authenticity for belonging.
That's the trade.
Yeah.
You're swapping the truth of who you are in this moment for what feels like a temporary artificial acceptance from the tribe. But you believe that acceptance is conditional on you never showing a flaw.
You believe if you drop the mask, you're out.
You're out of the tribe, or you're not worthy of the next opportunity. It's a powerful motivator.
But I want to push on that idea of safety a little. If illusion is a form of safety, isn't that trade worth it sometimes? I mean, a person who keeps up that stable front, aren't they more likely to keep their job or get a loan compared to someone who is openly falling apart?
And that is the painful truth the source is getting at. For a while, yes, the illusion does work as short-term risk management, but it demands constant energy, and as the essay shows, the price always goes up.
So the safety is temporary.
It's conditional and temporary. The hidden cost is that you're building your whole life on a foundation of sand. It's a facade. The moment your energy runs out, the moment the performance slips, the whole thing can collapse.
And it collapses catastrophically.
Because you have no real internal stability to fall back on. You've invested all your hours, all your energy in the external projection, and the core is hollow.
And the cost of showing that struggle, according to the text, is that it invites judgment or pity or distance.
That fear, that's the system of societal expectations in action. It's dictating our behavior. That pressure to just look fine is maybe the most universal compliance mechanism that exists.
It keeps us isolated.
It keeps us from seeking help, from sharing resources, from having real connections. It makes sure the cost of any struggle stays on your shoulders, and your shoulders alone. Because if you fear judgment or pity or being pushed away, you will pay almost anything to avoid being exposed.
In time, in health.
In your hours. The system never has to write a law that says comply. It just has to enforce that fear of exposure. And we do the work for it by paying the illusion tax.
So in this first stage, the price of illusion isn't really financial yet. It's this massive debt of time and emotional health.
Absolutely. A debt we take on to avoid the pain of being seen as we are. And that temporal debt, it's cumulative. It adds up.
A small withdrawal here, a small one there.
The time you spend smiling when you're exhausted, that's one withdrawal. The time you spend hiding financial stress from your partner, that's another. And those little moments, They add up to years. And when you look back, the hours you lost performing, that's the ultimate hidden cost.
Which sets the stage perfectly for the next part, for the escalation. Let's move to dissection part 2, where the essay shows the pivot, where the cost stops being just emotional and starts demanding actual payment.
Right.
The source reads, "But illusion asks for payment, slowly at first. A little debt to keep up, a little pressure to maintain the image, a little fear that the real us might not be enough."
This is the pivot point. This is where illusion gets truly expensive because, as the essay says, this is the moment it replaces truth.
To shift from defense to offense.
Exactly. Defense is holding it together to get by. Offense is when you start chasing the symbols of success to prove the lie is real. The minute you buy the car or the trip or the clothes, not because you need them, but because they validate the image.
You're now taking on actual financial debt.
Financial debt in service of an emotional need. And that is a corrosive trade. You're trading future hours for a tiny hit of relief today.
And that's when we become really vulnerable, right, to outside influence. This is where we have to bring in principle 2 of the framework, systems profit from compliance.
Yes.
Who actually benefits from this when we start chasing symbols instead of meeting needs?
Well, the systems do. The lenders, the marketers, the whole engine of consumer culture, they benefit profoundly because they run on leverage and compliance. If you're constantly focused on the gap between your real life and the life you're showing, you are a perfect customer.
You're perfectly leveraged.
The essay lays out the levers they pull. Look at the first one. A person who feels behind spends more to catch up.
That's the engine of consumer spending right there.
It is. If I feel inadequate, I don't just buy something I need. I buy the thing that screams, I am not inadequate. And that purchase is almost always on credit because the need is emotional and urgent, not rational.
Which leads right to the next line in the source. A person who feels insecure borrows to feel equal.
And that's the system turning your psychological distress into a revenue stream. Credit card debt, high-interest loans. They are immediate, high-cost solutions to an internal feeling of insecurity.
The system doesn't care if you feel behind.
It only cares that you transact to solve the feeling. That debt is the price of the illusion, and you have to pay it back with hours of your life. It's the literal trade of time as the only real currency for compliance.
So how does the system keep this going? How does it make sure we stay on that hamster wheel of feeling behind and spending to catch up?
It sustains it with the third observation the source makes, and I think this is the most devastating part of the analysis. It says, a person trained to compare rarely stops long enough to ask who set the standard. That is the definition of effective leverage. When you are focused outward, always comparing your life to someone else's curated story, you become an incredibly efficient source of revenue. You're just reacting.
You're not thinking.
You're not. Autonomy requires you to stop and ask, wait, who benefits from me feeling this way? But the act of comparison itself is compliance. The moment you start comparing, you've already accepted someone else's metric for your own life.
So the system doesn't need us to win or lose.
It just needs you to keep playing the game, keep moving, keep chasing, keep transacting, because every transaction is profit.
So the illusion is expensive because it's two kinds of debt. Emotional debt from performing and financial debt to make the performance believable.
And both are paid in the same currency.
Time, future hours.
Exactly. And the crucial thing the essay points out is the indifference of the system. It doesn't hate you. It doesn't even see you. It only sees the psychological leverage your insecurity provides. And it wants you focused on the external game, the illusion, not the internal reality.
Because the internal reality would require you to slow down.
And stop consuming.
Let's stay on that indifference for a second, because that's a really powerful idea. If the system is indifferent, it means the price is being maximized on purpose. Can you give me a concrete example of how that life, that leveraged life, directly steals your time?
Sure. Think about a status purchase you didn't need, bought with debt. First, you trade the hours you need to work to pay back the principal. That's the direct cost.
Okay.
Then you pay the interest. That's more hours. But the hidden cost is the time you lose to the stress of carrying that debt, the hours you spend worrying, the overtime you have to work to not fall behind. It's a double tax on your time.
And the original purchase didn't even meet a real need.
So the labor you traded for was essentially just burned. You traded non-renewable time for the fleeting comfort of feeling equal. The system is designed to maximize that waste, to keep you busy paying for things you bought to impress people you don't even like.
And that outward focus, that's what prevents us from the awakening, from Principle 5, you can't see the real cost if you're always looking at what your neighbor has.
That's it. The source is arguing we become compliant when we're focused on the narrative of the life we show, not the reality of the life we live. The system lives in that gap. And the more we pay to maintain the narrative, the deeper we dig the hole of our actual reality. It's a self-reinforcing cycle.
This is a fascinating bridge the essay builds now. It takes this personal truth and scales it up, says we can see the same thing in the market. Dissection part 3. It says markets show the same truth. Investors chase narratives. They chase what looks strong, what looks impressive, what looks proven.
And this analogy is so important because it grounds the emotional argument in a cold, observable reality. A market is just human behavior, but aggregated.
On a macro scale.
Right. So just like a person chases the symbols of success, the right car, the right house, an investor often chases the narratives of financial success, the hype, the momentum, the big growth story everyone's talking about.
It feels safer to be in the crowd.
It feels safer to follow the crowd, just like it feels safer to comply with what society expects of you personally.
But the essay immediately draws the line, the distinction that matters. It says, but appearance is not value. Performance is not strength. Momentum is not direction.
And that separation is the entire core of it. Value is what something fundamentally is. Its intrinsic worth, its cash flow, its stability. Appearance is just what it looks like today, and that's usually driven by story and speculation.
So when markets focus on appearance, they're chasing the illusion.
They are.
So what's the hidden cost there? In the market analogy, if a personal illusion costs you hours and your health, what does a market illusion cost?
It costs capital, time, and opportunity. When a narrative drives the price of something way beyond its fundamental value, you get a bubble, a massive illusion. And the cost is all the energy, the time, the research, the capital that was spent chasing it.
And that energy just vanishes when the bubble pops.
It vanishes when reality corrects. Think about any historical mania, Dutch tulips or dot-com stocks. The sheer amount of human energy that was poured into chasing those narratives was enormous, and most of it was wasted because the underlying value just wasn't there.
That brings up a really grounding question for me. If chasing the narrative drives up the price of the illusion, does that mean the opposite is true? Is the strongest, most real value found where the story is weakest, where things look unpolished?
The source strongly suggests that yes, absolutely, both in your life and in markets. Value tends to hide where the narrative is weak because the narrative creates demand and demand inflates the price.
The systems profit from the high price of the symbol.
Exactly. When you look for real value in the market, you often find in these quiet, boring companies that no one's talking about, but they have rock-solid fundamentals.
And the same is true in personal life. Same thing. True, sustainable value piece, real connection, mastering a skill is usually found in quiet, unglamorous activities. The things that don't get you likes on social media. But those are the things that build real foundational strength. They build value, not symbolic debt. So the energy it takes to maintain an impressive-looking stock portfolio based on hype is structurally the same as the energy it takes to maintain an impressive-looking life based on debt.
It's the identical energetic equation. Illusion demands energy. It's an active process. You have to constantly spend resources, your time, your money, your focus, just to keep the gap from showing. And that energy is not just expensive, it's totally unproductive, it's not building anything real, it's just hiding the truth.
And if we apply Principle 1 here, time is the only real currency. The market analogy really drives it home. Chasing momentum means you're using your hours to follow what's already expensive,
instead of using those same hours to find the deep, quiet value that requires patience. And patience is an act of defiance. It's an act of defiance against a system that's built on speed and instant comparison. The essay connects it all beautifully. Whether you're a person or a company, the moment belief, the narrative overrides reality. The value of collapse is inevitable. And the cost isn't just the money you lose, it's the hours of focus you wasted on a false signal.
Which brings us to the synthesis. The essay pulls it all together, summarizing the total cost. You called it the triple drain.
The triple drain.
First, hours through debt. Second, health through all that pressure. And third, peace, which is lost through constant comparison.
And those three things, they represent the total cost of maintaining that distance between the life you show and the life you actually live. It's a systemic drain. It hits every part of your existence.
It's the erosion of your well-being.
Your total well-being. If you are tired, stressed, and always comparing yourself to an impossible standard, you are paying the maximum price for the illusion.
But the text, it pivots right there. It goes from that crushing cost to this path of hope. It contrasts the drain with the reward of reality. It says, illusion demands energy. Honesty returns breath. Awareness restores peace.
Honesty returns breath.
Yeah.
I mean, that phrase just perfectly captures it, doesn't it? It's the physiological and mental lightness that comes when you just stop performing.
You let go.
You release that constant energy drain we've been talking about. And when you stop spending your resources to maintain the lie, those resources, your time, your focus, they're suddenly yours again.
And that freedom, that's principle 3. Awareness is reclamation. The essay is saying that real freedom just starts by seeing the pattern, by finally seeing the distance the illusion has created.
That distance is the price. The essay says it so clearly. The price of illusion is the distance it creates between the life we show and the life we want. You can't close a gap you refuse to even look at.
So reclamation is just deciding to close the gap.
It's the conscious choice to close it. You start with just radical honesty about where you are right now. You stop performing. And that pause, that's the most revolutionary thing you can do in a system that profits from you, never ever pausing.
I get that intellectually, but how does someone actually start that? I mean, practically. When you've been complying your whole life, how do you redefine success without feeling like you're losing that conditional safety we talked about?
The source suggests it doesn't start with some grand gesture. It starts with just redefining who you're competing against. The freedom begins, it says, the moment we stop competing with standards we did not choose. The moment we realize we never needed to look like anything to live a life that is ours.
You just opt out of the competition.
You opt out.
Okay.
And that is the moment you cut off the system's access to your resources. You reclaim your hours, not by quitting your job tomorrow, but by fundamentally rejecting the standards that were being used to leverage your insecurity.
If you reject the standard, the comparison has no power.
No power at all. And without comparison, the engine of illusion just grinds to a halt.
And that links perfectly to the last principle, to the long-term reward. Peace compounds, principle 4. It sounds like peace is the ultimate dividend you get for choosing honesty.
It is. Peace is the internal rhythm you find when you close that distance. It's not a sudden windfall. It's a sustainable state of being aligned with yourself.
And discipline is what gets you there.
Discipline in this sense is just radical honesty, moment by moment. When you choose to invest your time and your focus in your real needs, your rest, your health, real connections, instead of the performance, time starts to pay you back. It pays a dividend of internal peace.
And awareness is what brings the return.
Awareness brings the highest return because it shows you exactly where your energy is being wasted. When you choose truth, you stop paying the illusion tax. And all those future hours you were borrowing against, they suddenly become yours again. You start accumulating peace instead of debt. And that is the quiet, internal wealth the essay is pointing to as the only real freedom.
So the essay is really just a radical argument for simplifying your life down to what you actually need, and then protecting that with everything you've got.
And recognizing that complication and comparison,
Yeah,
those are the system's weapons.
to keep you compliant.
Exactly. And that simplicity you mentioned, that's the source of the compounding piece. If your needs are few and you define them yourself, the system has very little leverage over you. But if your needs are dictated by Instagram, your life becomes their profit center. The essay is a quiet call to just decomplicate and protect your time. Those two acts alone cause the price of illusion to collapse.
This entire deep dive, it's really been a quiet call to action. It demands this internal rigor, this radical self-ownership, and the theme is constant. Awareness is the start of everything.
It's seeing the cost.
Seeing the cost, seeing the pattern, and facing that uncomfortable truth that the system thrives on us not pausing, on us always looking outward.
And we have to remember how tiring it is. The performance is exhausting. We spend so much energy just trying to look like someone who's doing fine.
Someone who has it all figured out.
Right. And the essay is this grounded reminder that the performance is completely optional. The moment you stop, the debt stops growing. And the honesty, just like the text promised, it literally returns the breath you've been holding for years.
So if we accept the essay's premise that looking successful is a form of safety, especially for those of us trading hours for wages, then we have to ask the final question, the one the system never wants you to ask.
The one that unlocks everything.
What happens to the system and what happens to our own well-being when enough of us just reject that definition of safety? When we find our stability simply by choosing to be exactly who we are, regardless of the price of the illusion we refuse to buy, that is the real choice the essay leaves you with.
Thanks for listening to The Credit Edge. Remember, your time matters. See you next episode.